Hi, guys. Every family is a little different. I know this because my family is very different. I am proud to tell you that nobody's in the penitentiary right now. And in my immediate family, that's always been true, but there are some outliers, shall we say. Far outliers, distant cousins. That's my story. But to be a little more down to earth and somber about it, we all have issues in our family. There's somebody in your family, probably, who loves to be in charge. And there's probably others in your family who are tired of being told what to do by that person who loves to be in charge. You might also have someone in your family that um, appears to be borderline addicted. And if they had your money, they could afford the good stuff, and you want to plan around that. There are probably other people in your family that are not good at saving money and protecting it. Um, I'll just tell you the truth. I've not always been great at saving money. Okay, that was the understatement of the week. But I have gotten lots better, I will assure you. There's nothing like seeing retirement age and Social Security age on the horizon to really light a fire under you for that saving money issue. But there are some people in my extended family that it doesn't matter how much money you give them, pretty soon they're going to be broke again. If you have someone like that in your family, and if you love them anyway, because just because you're not good with money doesn't mean you're unlovable. Doesn't even mean you shouldn't inherit. But it probably does mean that mom and dad should give some extra thought to how you inherit and when you inherit and so forth. So I have asked Kennedy Bryan, to my right, your left, is one of our estate planning attorneys, to talk us through some of the issues that we see come through the office and help you start thinking how you might best plan for the family members who are not as perfect as you and I. I'm not perfect at all. I admit it. But we have to laugh or cry, so I'm going with laugh today. So, Kennedy, take it away.
Okay. Well, as estate planning attorneys, we see a lot of families that do have unique situations. It's very rare that someone says something that just absolutely shocks us. I know I'm young, but we don't shock easily. But we kind of compiled 4 situations that we think are of merit and deserve some extra thought. So the first one that we see every now and then is a child or maybe another beneficiary who is bad with money. Not everyone's great with money. We see it time and time again where a beneficiary can't be trusted with a large sum all at once. Maybe they'll blow through it in one day. Maybe they'll give it to their boyfriend of 2 days. You just don't know what they're going to do with it. So what can you do to protect your spendthrift beneficiary? Well, we have quite a few options at our disposal. We can restrict the amount of money that we get. We can designate a certain age that they have to be before they can get that money. We can also give them other requirements that they have to meet before receiving their money. Or sometimes we do a combination of all of them. It's really just a case-by-case basis.
Sometimes we tell your trustee in writing in your trust, you have the discretion to pay for any, all, or none of the following items, and then you list it. Maybe it would be unusual health care needs. If your daughter needed a kidney transplant and couldn't afford it, you would probably want to help, and therefore you might want to give your trustee the authority to help in that situation. So giving your trustee some guidelines and some discretion can be a good way of helping the family member who might not put the money aside for themselves.
The next issue we see, I don't want to say commonly, but we see every now and then, is a parent whose child or maybe a beneficiary who has sobriety issues. So most people don't want their money to be used to fuel someone's addiction. They They want their money to be part of the solution, not the problem, which is completely understandable. So how can you give your beneficiary money while also making sure that it's not being used for the things that you're worried about? So we have a couple ideas that we sometimes use. You can require your beneficiary to submit to drug testing before receiving their money. You can also direct the trustee to pay any money directly to the beneficiary while still giving the trustee to pay for things for their benefit. Again, each situation is different. So what might work for one person isn't going to work for the other. So it's important you present all those facts to us so we can help you.
I had one mother come in for estate planning, and her son has maintained sobriety for a couple years now, but she is concerned. And in her case, and I know it's not the case for everyone, her son's attendance at AA meetings is important to him maintaining sobriety. So she required every month her son to turn in his AA meeting attendance. And she set the number of times he must attend. And she required that his sponsor sign off on the attendance sheet. I'm not saying that's the answer for everybody, but she explained the situation, and she explained all the other things that her son had done in an effort to stay sober in the past, and that this was the one that worked for him. So of course we're happy to build that in. I'm not telling you to do it, but if there are tactics, goals, tests, I have another case where the beneficiary has a long history of what we would say falling off the wagon if it were alcohol, but in their case, it's not alcohol. So the beneficiary has to supply a clean drug test every month before they get any money. I know you don't do this lightly, and we're not dealing with it lightly. It is an important issue that deserves serious thought. You should be wise in how you deal with your children and not blindly hand them enough money to hurt themselves and others.
So our next issue is a little bit lighter. While we're thinking it, I'm just going to come out and say it. What do you do if your kid married a weasel? So, sorry, there's no kind way to put that.
There's not.
Well, you can't change who your child has married, but you can change how your child will receive their inheritance from you. A couple options for you to think about would be you could restrict the age and amount in which they receive their money, or you could leave their money in a trust, but give the trustee the power to leave this child money for their health, maintenance, support, things that you would decide. But those are just a couple things that you can kind of do to help that situation.
It's not terribly uncommon for a good and decent young person to choose less than the best spouse. Was that gentle enough?
It's better than my phrase.
They do it. And sometimes they've done it. Now, I'll admit that occasionally parents imagine that the in-laws are bad when they're not. But for the most part, pretty quickly if this is a person who's always watching the checkbook with one eye and watching the exit door with the other. And as soon as there's money that they can grab, they intend to grab it and head to their next glorious marriage. If you've got one of those, we can help with that. We can't eliminate all risk, but we can substantially reduce the risk while still giving your child or grandchild a reasonable degree of flexibility and a reasonable amount of help.
So our last scenario we're going to talk about is what you do when you have a beneficiary with special needs. This one is a pretty common one that we see, and it has some relatively easy fixes. So if you have a beneficiary who is incapacitated, I'm sorry for the word, it's just the legal term that we use, you can set up a third-party special needs trust via your will or your trust, and it's very easily included. By utilizing a third-party special needs trust, the trustee can still take care of your beneficiary without them losing their government benefits.
let me go just a little bit further down that road. If you are one of a married couple, you know, if you've thought about it even for a minute, that there's a chance that one of you, and sometimes both of you, will need long-term care. It is fairly common that a married couple will come in and will want to set some money aside when the first of the two dies so that the survivor can have some protected money, even if he or she goes into long-term nursing care, or even if they have a lawsuit, maybe that arises out of a terrible car wreck or otherwise. You can plan for incapacity that's not currently known, because we know that as we age, our memory is going to start failing us. Our thought process is not going to work like it used to. And we've learned that people who have reached a certain age and have suffered some of that age-related loss are more susceptible to weasels, as Kennedy said. So not only can you be thinking about the weasels that your kids married, you can and probably should be thinking about the weasels that will come along when the surviving spouse gets older and you're not there as a joint team to think through the things we receive in the mail and email. We're happy to elaborate on any of these you would like, and we talk about them in our estate planning workshops. We give those workshops 10 to 15 times a year, small groups, usually not over 12 people. 6 to 12 seems to be a pretty comfortable group for us. We just teach you about estate planning options. And we talk about some of these issues in that. There's no charge for that estate planning workshop. Of course, we hope you'll come back and do some estate planning, but there's no obligation, no selling at the workshop, no strong arm tactics at the workshop. It's education. And we hope you'll like us and that you'll recognize you need to do an estate plan and you'll come back and see us. That's all for now, guys. Thanks for sharing some of your day with us.